Hey, everybody out there. I hope you're enjoying our theme music. That's thanks to our buddy Bradley Hammers. And it's also an edited in surprise for Matt, too. So this is the first time he's hearing it, listening to the podcast broadcast. Another thing I want to add in is the name that I will keep trying to think of through the rest of the podcast is Timothy Truman. Him, Easley, and Elmore were the ones that kind of really changed the art style from the basic days of D&D, moving more into the second edition stuff. So, with that, let's get back to the show. Welcome, once again, to the
No Class Podcast.
with your internet buddies, Eddie.
And Matt.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going?
Living the dream.
Today is Friday the 13th.
Oh, no.
But luckily for you, dear listener, you won't hear this for about 2 weeks, so
Yeah,
your bad luck has already passed.
exactly. And it's getting better by the second.
But we've had some good luck.
Hells to the yeah.
Give them that long con update.
Can you believe it? First of all, as many of you may already well know, Brendan LaSalle is going to grace us with his presence. And we've confirmed no one other than David Beatty, the creator of Dark Trails, which is the Weird West game compatible with the DCC rules. And then finally, as good fortune would have it, one of our vendors is to be Diesel LaForce, famous as a early artist at TSR that created Dungeons and Dragons. He did a lot of cartography for them and some other artwork. He's going to be a vendor.
Which is going to bring us to our topic of the day, which is some of our it's going to be the top 10 picks for fantasy art.
And it was really, really, really difficult to narrow it down just to 10.
Yeah, this is more like the top 10 that I came across first.
Pretty much, yeah. Because there's so much iconic, inspiring fantasy artwork. And like and there's a lot of newer stuff that's been done in the last, 10 years, 5 years, whatever. But I can't speak for Eddie, but a lot of my picks are older pieces of artwork that inspired me in years gone by.
Okay. Now, I have seen some of what you've picked out, and I kind of knew some of the ones you'd pick out.
Oh, absolutely.
Because some of it, you've got a poster of it on your wall. So I
in
was
my
like,
game room.
that's going to be one of Matt's picks.
Yeah.
So some of the stuff I know, but not all of them. So we'll see. My hypothesis is that you're going to pick a lot of stuff older than me, but I think it will reflect when we came into the hobby.
Yeah, because you got to figure out, what have I got on you? 5 years? No, whatever. But anyway.
Well, not age-wise, but into gaming-wise.
Into gaming, I've been into
You've probably
gaming.
got, I don't know,
good
10
Lord,
years?
like a century. But
maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But anywho, but you know what? Late to the party, but he's caught up. He's still in.
I'm a natural.
Yeah, you feel like an OSR guy, even if you aren't necessarily an OSR guy.
Well, now second edition is OSR,
Second
right?
edition is OSR by all means, yeah. So, I mean, I came in with the boxed editions and first edition, but yeah. Anyway, but yeah, like, really exciting as always. Just a quick shout out that LongCon is rapidly approaching. Oh, an interesting tidbit. As always, we check in with our good friends at the Hilton Garden Inn, which is the amazing venue where we'll be having the convention this year. We are so appreciative to them.
And a great staff.
A great staff. And I mean, I've been dealing with the managers of different departments to make sure we want everything to be perfect for you guys. If you only knew, and Eddie particularly, the things that we do, because we want it to be perfect. We want everybody to have a great time. Mm-hmm. And so we've been dealing with Josh, who's the chef, and we've got some really neat food that's special for the con attendees. And dealing with Kelsey, who's doing things to make everything come together, and the director of sales, the gorgeous Stephanie, and there's Becca, who's been great, and Crystal, who's phenomenal, the GM. But one of the things that came out yesterday was people, and I'm really proud people have availed themselves of the con rate. And in doing so, what's interesting is rooms are being sold. As rooms are sold, the price for the non-con rate rooms are going up.
Yeah, which I find that's really impressive, incredible, whatever adjective you want to use there.
So, yeah, but there's two sides. On the one hand, it's kind of impressive that you guys have bought enough rooms that because normally November is kind of a dead month. The price of rooms is generally inexpensive.
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand, but as
You're demanding.
Yeah, so as you guys are buying rooms at the incredibly discounted con rate, still you're sending up the rate of the normal rooms. And that being said, for anyone's listening, or you have a buddy that's thinking about coming to the con or hadn't bought their room yet that's going to get one, tell them to avail themselves of the rate, because the rate goes away, and then you have to pay an even higher fee now for a regular room.
Well, if we stick to our broadcasting schedule, whatever you want to call it, by the time you hear this, it's the 13th now, but it'll be like the 26th or something when this gets uploaded. Mm-hmm. So this is almost like the podcast before the Long Con registration closes down.
Yeah.
We may get together and do a little special one the night before and cajole you into it. And then we might have to do a little something the day after and go like, yay, it's a victory. Yeah. We've already won right now with what we've done. We've won.
We've won. We're so appreciative. This has been, this thing's gotten better and better every year, but this year is just, wow.
Yeah, this year is just how big of a success will we be. We're a success right now. If we did nothing else.
Right on.
We won.
Yeah.
And that means all of us.
Yeah, everyone, involved. And we appreciate our game masters, the players, the venue space and everything. It's just our vendors. We can't thank everybody enough. So anyway, that aside.
Before we go back into the great art,
sure.
I guess we may not have talked about the Friends of the Con yet on the podcast.
Oh, right.
So we have two categories. We have special guests, and we have Friends of the Con.
Yeah.
And this is a little inside baseball, so let's see if I just edit this out. But special guest means that in some way we are bribing them.
Well, yeah.
Friend of the Con means they're coming out of the goodness of their heart, and or they're bribing us, like certain people like Richard LeBlanc. Mm-hmm. He's coming as a vendor, but we've had him as a special guest before.
Yeah.
So we're still happy to have him. He will still get that 5-star treatment from us and take advantage of him while he's there.
Yeah, because his brand is New Big Dragon.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, and I'm just saying this, I mean, I own everything that New Big Dragon's put out, and it's all of the highest quality. It's just great product. Seriously, check it out.
And then we've got Jonathan Thompson from
Battlefield
Press coming again. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel like there's 5 people listening to this show, so we can really cut loose, but I don't know. He's given Matt a little inside knowledge that I don't know if we're allowed to share yet. What do you think?
We will anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. He knows that I and Eddie are big
jerks.
Yeah. There's for sure. But is proponents the right word? But anyway,
advocates.
Yeah, advocates definitely for DCC.
Shills,
absolutely. Shills would be the best word. For Goodman Games' product, particularly DCC, MCC, and its derivatives. And there's so many great things people have built off that engine, as I call it. Starcrawl or
Dark Trails,
Cyber Sprawl Classic, Dark Trails, American Wastelands.
Yeah.
Ad nauseum. I could go on and on.
He can.
Yeah. At will. Where was I going with that? But anyway, Jonathan Thompson, has optioned or tried to get the seal of approval to produce an adventure compatible
with
DCC's engine.
Impressive.
And I think it's something Gaslight or something. So it's like
it,
Victorian.
Yeah, I want to say
horror
Gaslight by
mystery,
night, but
whatever.
That's probably not it.
Yeah, but I mean, sorry, Jonathan, if we totally slaughtered that. Please send us an email or just text me.
This is an off the cuff.
Yeah, this wasn't planned. Normally we try to be better prepared. We'd have all our data in front of us. But anyway, but just off the cuff. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, a lot of exciting stuff. A lot of neat people to see and meet and greet. We're really excited, people that have been here for us every year at the con, like John Watson. I'm looking forward to seeing. I want to see John. I mean, he's a great guy.
Well, I don't know if we've talked about this one before, but we have talked about doing a person of the con. Like, hey, this is somebody that's really gone out of their way and done so much for us. This is probably the person, that, has really just done whatever. But there's too many of them.
Yeah.
There's like John Watson, great guy. There's Jason Lillies.
Oh, yeah.
Just our GMs like James Ward and Robert Vegeta.
Yeah.
Laurelin.
Robert Kilsley. Kelsey. And Laurelyn's been there since the beginning and been a big help.
Doug and Nicole.
Oh, we love Doug and Nicole. Absolutely.
Cody.
Cody, yeah.
Throw money at
like
us,
I said,
Cody.
I mean, there's somebody that we're going to leave out, and they're going to be offended we didn't call them out. But I mean, the idea is
It's too close.
It's just so many great people that have been advocates and have supported us, financially and otherwise, and helped make this con. Which this year I really feel like we've arrived. If we didn't before, we have arrived.
Well, we have worked and worked prior to
Diligently,
these
yeah.
to, I guess, as they say, lay that floor that you'll walk on for years and years to come. So do it right.
Yeah.
And I think we finally got that foundation set.
It's like I'm getting the saying wrong, but it's something like, with diligence and years of hard work, you too can be an overnight success.
Yeah.
But anyway, artwork.
No.
Oh, but
Come on, man. We
All
have
right.
not shielded enough. Also, Long Con Spring.
oh, that's true. Board games. Oh my gosh, board game companies are very generous.
So don't let us speak ill of the RPG companies.
Oh, yeah.
People like Frog God,
Oh, they've been very generous.
Chaosium,
They're awesome.
Goodman Games.
They've been generous for so long. So generous.
But so, well, I guess kind of on that, you look at WotC and Paizo. They're like, get the fuck out.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much whenever.
You will take nothing.
Yeah,
I'm like, do you guys have some pencils or
I mean,
bookmarks?
you,
or
you either get an automated screw-off letter or just dead air. When you, hey man, I've been a promoter of your game and advertise it, build a club around it. Yeah, whatever. Get out of my face.
But I get it. They're big enough that they don't need to do anything, so they're not.
Right.
But
But who of all could afford to be the most generous?
exactly,
You
would think.
That one book of ours just sold 50 million on Amazon. Yeah, okay. How about passing some love along?
But the board game companies, on the other hand, I know we've talked about this before, but I think they appreciate it that they've got to really make that extra effort because a lot of them are small companies too.
And board games are so prolific these days. I mean, there's just so many.
And
Different
we were
companies
talking
and
about the
games.
pricing. We thought about doing a different price for board gamers and RPG gamers, but it was just going to be a hassle.
Problematic.
And we would like you to be able to freely flow back and forth from the channels here. If you want to go play a board game for a couple of hours and then you want to come back into your next scheduled game, do it, man. But one of the benefits for the board gamers, I think, on the pricing is that we're going to have a pretty good play to win.
There's
Set up.
ample opportunity to possibly win a $20, $30, $40 board game. Yeah.
So I'm working with Double Exposure, and they coordinate for a lot of board game manufacturers. So that's going to hit a lot of stuff. And like I said, you play a game, you have a good chance to win it.
You got to be in it to win.
Because it's not like Gen Con where it's like, oh, okay, there's 10,000 people here. We're going to be at between 100 and 200. And I think we've talked amongst ourselves and said 200 will be our absolute limit.
Yeah.
If that day ever comes where we get 200, that's it. We're not moving up anymore.
No.
That's where we would lock it down at.
We don't have the infrastructure in place, so we're just two guys.
Well, even if we did, I mean, we're not trying to be Gen Con here or any
No.
of that. We're not trying to be NTRPG,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even want to be as big as them.
I'm envious. They've got a dedicated crew of people that help them for.
Hi, Gary.
Yeah, Gary Oliver is awesome. One man gang. And don't get me wrong. Then there's Brian and there's Frank and this one.
To a
and that
much
one.
lesser extent, Brian.
Yeah, well, sure. Yeah, much lesser with Brian, but anyway. But I'm just saying, they have a crew that helps them because there's no way you could do that just two guys.
Yeah. So at the time, we're a 2-man crew putting it together. So I guess we think we can handle 100 people apiece.
Yeah. I'm in my prime. Of course I can.
All right, now,
Now.
do you feel like we've got all our plugs out of the way?
No, but let's move on anyway.
All right. Great art is what I called this one, but I'm sure the title of the show will be like our top 10 inspiring fantasy
Yeah,
images.
iconic, inspiring fantasy images.
But really, it's just the top 10 that we came across first because there's so much of
Yeah.
this stuff.
Well, even it's almost like when you picked an artist and then have to narrow down one piece of art from them.
Yeah, that's impossible.
That's impossible. There's just so much good art by these artists.
I could have just made my list the top 10 Jeff Easley
Yeah, right on.
pieces.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think there's a lot. We talked about this. Just a little segue into there's a lot of things I think get attributed to Elmore, but they were actually
right.
easily. And don't get me wrong, Elmore stuff is amazing.
I could do that too. It could be
Yeah.
the top 10 Elmores.
Elmore, yeah. But the thing is, I think there's a lot of good stuff that easily did that Elmore gets the credit for, kind of mentally, from people.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and kind of start this story.
Sure.
Is that Elmore and Easley, and there's the third name that I am forgetting at the moment.
Parkinson?
Nope.
Oh,
But
Caldwell?
he's nope. It was see, I can tell you who it's not.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and look this up and maybe edit it into the show or just put it in our notes. Oh, and let me interrupt myself to say we're going to put all these pictures up on the Facebook somewhere
Yeah,
so that you
can-
can watch along, so you can click through them and go, oh, okay, because I don't even have the names of all mine. Matt was very diligent about tracking down names, but I was
Oh,
like,
Eddie.
I don't know.
Oh,
Hey, some of these that I came across, I couldn't even find the freaking artist
Isn't that
because
wild?
people just post stuff willy-nilly with no, what is it,
Willy-nilly.
artist.
Yeah.
They don't attribute it to the artist. So
Where-
you're like,
I'll
I
give
don't
you
know.
a name and year if you wanted to look them up yourself. But we've done the work. We've provided you the art too.
Yeah, and when we put them on Facebook, maybe I'll take the extra mile. So there were three kind of leaders of the new style. Once you got away from the original classic artist,
Mm-hmm.
there was these three guys that I'll have to think of. It's Elmore
I know
and
what you're talking about. You're talking about Easley.
Easley. Yeah.
Easley, but not Clyde Caldwell.
Nope.
Hmm.
So anyway, that kind of started that new style, going away from what they had before, more like basic and first edition.
I would think you were talking about Keith Parkinson.
It's not. It's
not. Okay.
I will look up this name
Okay.
because now I must.
You have to. It's
But
imperative.
oh, the other thing I think you will learn about this list is that me and Matt are sexist pigs,
We're total sexist pigs.
but maybe because of the era or just the way that fantasy art is depicted, there will probably be a lot of busty, scantily clad women being rescued. Is my theory.
But great old Pulp Fiction. That was what it was all about.
Right, but I mean, let's not go into the difference of what you could do 40 years ago and what you could do today.
Yeah.
But that is kind of somewhat it too.
Try to curb your toxic masculinity, Eddie.
Yeah, we'll see. All this is going to get cut out anyway. It's all
Better-
edited.
Better not.
Every bit of this will be edited. So let me go over here and see what image Matt will start us off with. Let's try and slide this computer to you a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about.
That is.
Can you see, sir?
Yes, I can. If nothing else, I've got a list and I'm going in order.
So that's Death Dealer, isn't it?
That is The Death Dealer from 1973 by Frank Frazetta. Frazetta's artwork is just so iconic, and I think he made such an impression on so many other artists that people are appreciating now or appreciated in more recent years, like, say, Brahm, for instance, which we'll touch on him again later, but Gerald Brahm. But, I mean, so much of Frazetta, I mean, every bit of Frazetta's work. It was so hard to pick even these three. I mean, I cull it down to these three, but these are three of my favorites, and hence they're framed on my wall. Anyway, but yeah, the first one is Death Dealer. If you'll think, and probably even if you haven't, this particular one is the one where he's on a horse, but there's one where he's got the axe up over his head, and there's a bunch of guys around him. There's other ones where he's in different poses, but it's always the darkened face, glowing red eyes, horned helm, and the axe. But he did different versions. A band called Molly Hatchet
Yep.
used a lot of his artwork on their album covers, which good old Southern Fried Rock. But anyway,
You're flirting with disaster, mister.
duh.
But this also looks he did the art too, but this looks very Conan-esque to me.
Well, in fact,
If you shined a light on Death Dealer, how he's in the shadow there, that could very well be Conan.
well, and if you look at, we'll get to this when we get to my third piece of artwork, but The Barbarian, 1974, that artwork was used on a Conan cover, and a lot of his artwork was used on these Conan books in the 70s, and there was this sudden resurgent interest in Conan, and it sold hundreds of millions of books. And don't kid yourself, that artwork on the cover is what initially caught people's attention and helped sell those books. And I don't doubt that the Conan movie being made in the early 80s had a lot to do with these books being sold in the 70s, you know.
All right, here's where I'll try and salvage this again. Do you know who did the artwork for War Duke? Like the D&D line of figures that was out, and it's kind of very much the cartoon, the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon look.
No, I know you're talking about War Duke, but no, I don't know who did it.
That guy. That's one of the things that I could point to and go, aha, because that was one of the images that I almost picked
Yeah.
as one of mine. But the other thing you'll learn about for my picks, I love villains apparently.
Apparently.
There's a lot of those or that, but it's also like this is what you would see as an adventurer coming up
Sure.
instead of a lot of the
Which you make a
heroic
point.
stuff.
Death Dealer does look kind of like, is he a villain or is he a good guy? Is he an anti-hero? He certainly
You
doesn't
wouldn't
seem
want
like,
to run across that.
No, no, no. And I mean, he's kind of fear inspiring. So you think bad guy, yeah.
All right, so we'll go to my first image. Oh, and these are in no order for me at least.
Now I knew you were going to pick Count. You know what's his
Strahd.
Okay,
Strahd's got to be in there. I love
But
Strahd.
you're talking about, you didn't pick the one where he's up on the balcony because that's iconic.
It's so iconic, but
Yeah.
and I could have, knowing me, I could have done top 10 Ravenloft images or
Oh, yeah.
top 10 pictures of
Well,
Strahd.
This guy loves Ravenloft, and that is a great piece of art. And who was that? Clyde Caldwell.
That's Clyde Caldwell.
I
That's
knew
where
it.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of Clyde Caldwell, but I
Yeah.
didn't realize how much of his art. That's not one of the first names on my tongue.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about Claude Caldwell, but he did a lot of great artwork from back then.
Yeah, that's beautiful. But then
and
here's
at a glance, I knew who it was.
here's the classic example. Like I said, there's your kind of busty damsel in distress. Oh my, semi-shocking. Maybe like men only care about one thing, and it's disgusting.
A woman's brain.
But that's
Her
just
mind.
freaking kick-ass art.
No, it's amazing.
That's how you
artwork.
should see a vampire.
Right
That's
on.
just so.
Well, and that's the usual kind of like horror movie. Bela Lugosi coming out from some doorway with the dry smoke billowing out, and a hot chick fainted or whatever across the arms or whatever.
But I have another little anecdote for you. I'm poor planning, but I think it was Elmore that said that they used to call Clyde Caldwell the Thigh Master because all of the things that he drew, you were going to get some thigh like that.
Well,
So I thought that was pretty interesting. But
he's
got a
probably
ton
a leg man, you
of
know.
great images. And we're looking at this on Facebook, and I'll scroll down to this image for Matt. And hopefully not let him see all my other ones. He did this one too. Did you know he did that?
No, I did not, and that is an amazing piece of artwork.
Which that is the cover for one of the DCC modules.
Absolutely,
Save me with the name. It's by Harley Stroh,
yeah. And you've ran it before.
and it was a 3.5 that got converted over into DCC.
Yeah, and it's
about
it was like a fun
those
adventure.
apes or whatever.
Well, it had like weird ape men and stuff. I mean, typical DCC. It's going to be something weird and strange and whatever. But yeah,
And it's got the
Something
typical
like
bikini armor.
the Dragon Queen's throne or something. It's got a name like that. But I mean, yeah, that is like
It's great classic art,
in that great bikini armor, chainmail.
which would protect nothing.
Absolutely,
That's how you know she's really a wizard or sorceress.
exactly. She's enticed, but while you're busy, bewitched and bewildered by her chainmail bikini, that's when she runs you through with the sword.
That's the real protection of the armor.
It really
it's
is.
distraction.
Plus, I mean, who could hit that and mar that perfection?
All right, here's another one off of Matt's game room wall. It's
the Egyptian queen, and once again talking about perfectly formed, the female form. This is from 1969, and a little interesting tidbit is that the original recently sold at auction for $5 million. And so there's like this.
I think you were one of the bidders too, weren't you?
I bid $1. But anyway, so I mean, here's, for those of you who pull up the image, you can see what I'm talking about. But I mean, there's the sinewy leopard or cheetah, whatever, this cat down at the bottom of this pedestal she's leaned against, sort of come hither, and the exotic Egyptian eyes, and she's like, but she's a queen in a time when like most people would be, scrawny and starving, and she's got a little meat on her bones. She's been eating good. She's the queen, but still she's voluptuous and anyway, and then there's the guard in the background, some eunuch, with a sword. It's just great Frazetta artwork, and I just love the look of it. It's so evocative.
Yeah, I think a lot of these, you look at them and you say, I would love to be playing in that game, or I would write that adventure sort of thing.
Right on. I mean, that's what this artwork has inspired so much creativity through the years for me, and I assume for other gamers and game masters and whatnot.
All right, now here's you a Keith Parkinson,
Which I love his work.
which this one is Raceland fighting Fistantilus in the lab, kind of who's going to get the body. And I'm trying to think, that's the Time of the Twins
Oh, wow.
series.
Yeah. which, love me some Raceland. Always like Raceland the best out of all those characters.
But again, I could do top 10 Ravenloft images. I could definitely do top 10 Dragonlance images.
Oh, yeah.
And there are some people that poo-poo on all the settings.
Uh-huh.
But that's where I came in at. So I have an appreciation for it. And I think, regardless if you think it's great art on the novels and all the box sets and their modules,
Sure.
we can agree that that's great art.
Oh, it's
And
amazing.
it's very
art.
inspiring.
Yeah, I mean that just like the pose that Raceland's in. He's holding his staff and he's got his fingers wrapped around Crow like he's just starting to incant some spell. And Fistonantulus is gesticulating like he's about to throw down some cool magic. I mean, that's just cool, man.
You can see how pissed Raceland is.
Oh, yeah, well, he was always pissed. What are you talking about?
Some shit's about to go down.
Oh yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. You wouldn't want to piss Raceland off, But I love because he's the anti-hero of that series of books, and I've always kind of liked the anti-heroes. I'll tell on myself.
All right. What do we have for Matt next?
And there it
It's
is, the
The
Barbarian.
third
Yeah.
poster from the wall.
Yeah, the Barbarian. And this piece of artwork has been parodied, imitated, duplicated. It's that classic big, brawny He-Man, death glare on his face, standing on a pile of dead bodies with this incredibly conveniently nude and voluptuous woman clinging to his thigh. Oh, you've rescued me. I mean, every high school boy's fantasy.
And it's Conan.
And it's Conan. It's absolutely Conan. In fact, that was used for the books, And the piece of artwork is called The Barbarian. It was done in 1974. It's a real pop culture, touchstone. And this is where we've talked about these three pieces. They're all Frazetta. So Frazetta's work hit a certain kind of adolescent mind like a ton of bricks, and that was that. It was imprinted. The drama, the urgency, the sex, the fantasy. I mean, that was Frazetta's artwork. And I mean, not just these three. Go and look at any of his artwork. It's all
Well,
got
you could do
that.
a top 10
Oh, absolutely.
for Frazetta. So,
And I mean that for that time period, that had such an impact. And there's many of the artists working today that could, even if they wouldn't admit to it, there's something about this artwork that got them going. Like I think Gerald Brom, if you look at his stuff, and I love his stuff too, and I think he's even come out and said, yeah, Frazetta was a huge influence.
All right. Spoiler alert. There's probably going to be a lot of Conan on this list.
Oops.
Let me see. Is this my number 3? I think it is.
Yeah,
And I think it is another Keith Parkinson.
Yeah.
It is.
Lord
Soth's
Soth's
Charge.
Yeah. Which that's his number 3.
These are not in order.
Yeah.
This is just
Not in
kind of
order,
as I found them and put them there. So this is
Yeah.
not my 3rd favorite or my 7th favorite as it would be.
But we knew there'd be some duplications, but at least this is one I know we duplicated because this was like my 10th choice. But, not to say that it's 10th on my list per se, but yeah. But it's such a great piece of art.
And that's another villain shot.
Yeah. And so here he is, the evil Lord Soth and his undead retinue are charging across some plain on their red-eyed, fire-breathing, devil horses. I mean, it's just Parkinson had such a talent. God rest his soul. He died of cancer in
Leukemia.
in
2009 is what I'm going to
2000.
say.
Yeah, I think somewhere around there, which is a real shame. Very talented man.
I will say that I don't think I knew what Lord Soth was the first time I saw this picture, because I want to say it was in one of the monster manuals or something like that too.
Well, now Lord Soth is a villain from Dragonlance, right?
Oh yeah, I know what obviously what it is now, but I think the first time I saw this picture, it was not in relation to Dragonlance, so it was just a Death Knight charging across with a skeletal army. It didn't have any novel behind it, like, oh, I know that character, like here's Darth Vader striding through the place.
Yeah.
It'd just be like, oh, here's some dude in all black and he
Yeah.
looks badass.
No, but it's just
So
awesome
that one
piece of artwork.
stands alone.
Oh yeah, phenomenal.
All right, let's click over and see what Matt has for us next. Oh yeah, there's your boy.
Right on.
As much as I love Conan, this might be your guy.
Yeah, I love Elric of Melniboné, and I mean, I love those books. But it's one of those things like if anybody ever want to go, God, I wish Matt never got into gaming. Well, go punch Gary Hopkins in the face.
I was going to do that anyway.
Right, if you're smart. But for anybody that's like, man, I'm so glad that Matt's a gamer. Well, then go buy Gary Hopkins a cheeseburger, no bacon. But the thing about is when I was very impressionable, what, like 10, 11, 12-year old or something, Gary and I were buds, and he brought me the Elric books, and I started reading them. And you know, at that tender age, all you're used to is movies and books that are all about, yay, the hero wins the day, and they're always shiny and wonderful heroes. But here's Elric, who is this anti-hero and such a convoluted character. But I won't go. That's a different podcast. But the books were so good. But once again, what helps sell those books and really draw you in is the artwork on the cover by Michael Whelan is just. I don't have the words for how amazing.
They should have sent a poet.
Yeah, exactly. Words. But these books came out in 1977 from Dahl Books, and
DAW.
Yep. But anyway, yeah, the like if you put and all the covers are great. If you put a gun to my head and said, "All right, I want you to pick," narrow it down like 2 or 3 covers. This first one is from the Sailor on the Seas of Fate. And there's Elric at the prow of the ship, and the other sailors behind him are looking at him like, what the? And here he is, just all, slender and albino with the Stormbringer, the evil devil forged into a blade. And you're just like, oh, man. And if you'll flip over to the next one, though, but this one, the Weird of the White Wolf, holy crap. I mean, is that not just, wow.
Yeah, it's epic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, here he is astride some misshapen foe he's put down. The blade is sticking out of their chest, and you see it actively sucking this creature's spirit and soul out of it and robbing him of any kind of eternal afterlife as that's sucked into that blade. And Elric is just a quiver drawing on the energies that the blade is stealing. I mean, it's just, wow.
That does it for you.
I'm gonna need to go to the bathroom for me. I'll be back.
I'll be in my bunk.
I'll be in my bunk. But anyway.
All right. Well, I can't match up to that enthusiasm, but here we go with me having another villainous type of picture and probably another Ravenloft style picture.
Mm-hmm.
We get, I think Jeff Easley hits our list now.
Yeah.
This is our first Jeff Easley, correct?
Yeah. Yes, correct.
So this one is
love me some Easley.
Like a lich and his ghouls and just the energy and electricity crackling off of him as he's raising these dead to him. That's the kind of thing I think as a player you go, oh crap, it's going to hit the fan now.
Oh yeah.
Or as a GM, you're like, boy, I'd love to write that scenario and make my players be the ones that are saying, oh crap.
And that's the best artwork that inspires you to create,
And then you can kind of see I had a few honorable mentions here.
Sure.
I almost went with the Eye of the Beholder artwork where the skeleton's busting down the door.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost went with, what is this, the cover of the Manual of the Plains?
Yep.
And that's the Abyssal Stalker, is that right?
Abyssal Stalker, yeah.
So,
just a big,
and then of course that. So,
yeah.
And then of course that.
Yeah,
all these
so
ones that I
much.
won't put up there.
Yeah.
You can just hear me talking about them, but
just iconic.
Geez, yeah,
great,
Jeff Easley,
evocative. Yeah,
the
easily, man. I mean, I'm gonna make somebody mad, but Elmore was good. But honestly, and I think he gets more attention. But yeah, I like. To me, it easily edges him out. To me, sorry, anybody that irritates, but no, man.
Well, since we jumped ahead to your next one, I guess I could jump ahead to my next one,
go
which
ahead.
brings Larry Elmore onto the
There
list
you
since
go.
we're talking about him.
Did show me wrong. Elmore's phenomenal, but
And here is, we've got to do Dragonlance again.
apparently, a lot of good artwork came that really touched you. Came out of
That's when I was
Dragonlance.
getting really drawn into the hobby.
There
so
you go.
all this kind of when the land was boxed sets,
Yeah.
that's where I came in.
Mm-hmm.
This is another one. So I mean, it's the same set of books, even I think,
Mm-hmm.
where it's the time of the twins, and you've got Raceland chained up by was it Takesis or the Tiamat.
Yeah.
Her other form, more badass art, and
No,
yeah, that's
it's
where
amazing
Larry
art.
Elmore comes into the list.
But-
Moving on to Matt's next one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my!
One more. There we go.
Oh yeah, I should have known this one would be
Yes.
in there.
And then we're talking about art that inspired you, and like you said, you got in at Dragonlance. Okay, so I came in pretty much the tail end of like the box sets, and then first edition D&D. And so of the 3 books, God bless the artwork on the Monster Manual. I love it, but and the DMG's great, but the Player's Handbook, that devil statue, that demon statue, whatever, is so iconic. Once again, it's been parodied and duplicated and whatever and done. But what's interesting to me is if that was chosen or David Trampier, who did that. Since that book came out in 1978, he encapsulated everything it meant to play D&D at that time in one picture. I mean, look at it and think about it. You know, here you are, a group of guys that are sieging the dungeon, killing the evil lizard men, you know, that worship this thing. Now it's time to get the loot. You're prying the eyes out of the statue.
Now, see, that's where you're reading into it. There were these innocent lizard men minding their own business in church, and these horrible adventurers come along, and these murder hobos kill them and
Regardless,
take their crap.
well, again, I don't deny that encapsulates everything it meant to be a player in old
Very
school
true.
D&D. Where either way you look at it, I'll say okay, you know. But I mean, so what a great piece of artwork! A real a tribute to David Trampier and the original artists of TSR. Yeah,
And the nice little touch of the guy wiping off his blade from the
wipe-
blood.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You know?
But this was a lot of the art style that I expected to see from you. So
because you know I have a
the
great
rest of your
appreciation.
list will be revealed, but
yeah.
we shall see if there's a lot of this.
But no, a lot of the old stuff I have a real appreciation for it because almost some of the stuff that came later to me was almost too polished, too
Right.
crisp,
And I'll definitely own up to that one, that I really like that nice polished look.
and that's fine. But to each their own. You know, that's what taste and flavor are different.
All right, Larry Elmore will make another appearance.
Dun dun dun.
And
Shadowrun.
you recognize this one.
Oh yeah, the original cover to the first Shadowrun, and which is a great piece of artwork. And again, it encapsulates kind of what it meant to play Shadowrun. The Deckers trying to hack in, the street warrior guys shooting at some Sararimen, you know, and there's a chick with a gun and a spell, you know. Heck yeah, man. It's fantasy. It's sci-fi.
So this is the first sci-fi that hits the list, I think, right?
It absolutely. It might be.
Absolutely the only one.
It might be.
It could very well.
Yeah.
But I think this was the cover of the Player's Guide, right?
Well, there was
Starts
just
You
there was
Lion?
just a single book originally for Shadowrun.
Well, okay. But it was also the cover of the Sega Genesis game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that applies to me.
Yeah, you
I
guys-
didn't get into the role playing for a while.
Yeah.
So video games were the beginning of a lot of my role playing, and that was really just such. That one sold you the game. That would have sold you the book. It's just that good.
It really is great artwork.
All right. What does Matt have up for us next? Ah,
There you go.
welcome to my Dragonlance.
Right on. So see, more Dragonlance, but it's Clyde Caldwell's Dragons of Desolation from 1984.
And you can tell because you can see the dragon's thigh.
Exactly.
This one, there are no scantily clad women.
Exactly. So it shows you we're not total perfs. But yeah, it's like this ancient, withered. Either he's dead and desiccated, or he's lichefied. Probably lichefied. Old, like elven king. He's got a crown. He's on a throne. The gems and the throne just.
So you haven't.
glow.
Did you read the Dragonlance ones back in the day?
No, I absolutely read the original Dragonlance books. If you remember when we were on those other guys' podcast,
Yeah.
they asked us about the
So
books.
he's with the dragon orb,
Yeah, that's
draining it out.
right. Yeah, or what is it doing to him, corrupting his dreams or whatever. But here's this dragon sitting here leering, you know, hanging on to the back. It's just what a great piece of art.
You get a lot of, or the Dragonlance novels get a lot of crap for too much like Lord of the Rings, but that's kind of his Grimer Wormtooth.
Yeah.
If you want to use that analogy, he's kind of pouring that poison into the king's ear.
Absolutely.
All right, I guess I have to go look at another one of mine.
Afraid so.
And
Ooh.
Frank Franzetta
There
comes
we
in for
go.
me because I knew Matt wouldn't pick this one. This is Against the Gods.
But this would have been my probably fifth pick.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're really close on a lot of our tastes here, which
So
I didn't
much good
expect.
stuff, yeah.
But this is Conan. Call it whatever you
No,
want.
that-
It's Conan.
Well, I'm sure that if you looked, that was probably the cover of one of those books
Oh,
from the
yeah.
70s. You know, Conan the Conqueror, Conan the Destroyer, Conan the Freebooter, Conan the Honey Toucher. I mean,
So
whatever.
this one's just Conan, scantily clad. So
With a lightning bolt careening off his sword instead of electrocuting him.
yeah, take that as you will. And we didn't make any hard and fast rules on what we could and couldn't include in this. Could and could not include. But what we had went without saying. We didn't make any hard and fast rules about what we could and couldn't pull from as sources. Because I could have definitely done the Conan comics.
Oh yeah.
So we didn't use comics, which we hadn't made an agreement or a rule on that. But You didn't use any comic art, did you?
Nope.
So neither did I. I tried to stick primarily with like D&D, RPG type
Well,
stuff.
yeah, fantasy artwork.
but-
I noticed you had sci-fi, but we didn't make an agreement. But I could have culled a lot of cool stuff from sci-fi as well.
But I mean, even the like Franzetta posters, that could be kind of in the gray area or whatever. But
Pop
we just said
culture.
RPG images.
Yeah.
So there was a ton of other places that we could have pulled from, and he made this list even longer and made this podcast even longer. Cut down to size.
With this ring, I think it's known by both titles, but it's Jeff Easley. So finally, my contribution from Jeff Easley. This is from the Second Edition Player's Handbook.
Second edition, you say?
Yes, indeed. That's your bailiwick. So here's the thing that's interesting is for all the people of like, dude, it's misogyny and blah, 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 sexist or something. No, here was a strong, empowered woman, a female warrior who's lithe but not wearing like a bikini or her hooters hanging out. You know, she's strong, she's powerful, and she's beat the crap out of this ogre. You see where she's cut his club down just a nub in his hand, and she's leaning over, putting her knee in his groin and holding onto his nose ring, and she got a sword up there like, all right, buddy, you tell me what I want or I'm going to run you through. I mean, she's beat the poop out of this creature twice her size. It's very empowering for women. It's just a great piece of artwork, very evocative. I mean, it just, I love it. It's a great piece of artwork.
This is one that I would have picked, but I knew it was going to be on Matt's
Yeah,
list.
because there's a lot of stuff we already knew that we liked, but this one I've touted to before, and people go, D&D's finally not sexist and blah, 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 and women are finally empowered, and I'm like, just stop. Let me point you back to 1988, which is when this artwork
Please
came
do.
out.
Please do point me back to 1988.
man.
I've got some things I need to take
Yeah,
care of.
get me back to 88. All right.
Ken Kelly.
Oh, interesting.
So, have you heard of Ken Kelly?
I won't lie. I've never seen this piece of art before. I've never heard of Ken Kelly.
Now, if you had never, if I just showed you this, who might you think that was by?
I might would have said it looks somewhat Frazetta-esque.
So, Ken Kelly is related to Frank Franzetta's wife. So he was actually able to go in there and hang out in the studio and watch over his shoulder.
Yeah, from the master himself.
Yeah, and a lot of times, here I'll show one of my fandoms. I used to be a really big Kiss fan,
Really?
and they wanted to get Franzetta to do one of their covers.
Uh-huh.
And they said, I want $1 billion to do it. And they're like, we can't afford that. Get us the next. And actually, your boy Gene Simmons, as a major comic book fan, he'd seen some work that Ken Kelly had done and said, hey, this guy could do it. So they contacted him. He did, I think, the Destroyer cover, the Love Gun cover, which for like top fantasy images, that almost got on there. If you
Right
think
on.
of that Love Gun cover,
Oh, yeah.
it's
absolutely.
incredible. But again, that's where me and Matt would be horrible sexist pigs. But
Yeah, absolutely.
you've got to think of the things that inspire a young boy's imagination.
Yeah, it's like, how can you get teenage boys to pick up this record and consider buying it? Well, sex sells. And it still does. You can say what you want. I mean, clickbait on the computer, whatever.
But again, in this one, we have our scantily clad male figure. Ooh, ooh la la.
Ooh la la, look at those abs.
And he's cutting down the cultists.
Right on. And there's one
He's
with his
laying
hand
the schmack down.
outstretched, trying to incur the wrath, some curse he's about to hurl at this barbarian,
So this is where you take into effect weapon speed and how fast you can cast with somebody in your face.
And casting time, yeah.
If I had to make a bet, I
was a
think
betting
this sword
man.
comes down first.
Yeah, there's going to be one more dead cultist on the linoleum here in a minute. But no, that's very evocative. I love the colors, the stairs in the back, the brazier. I mean, that's just really a great piece of artwork.
And it's another obvious Conan,
Oh, yeah.
which, as I've said many times,
Are you a fan of Conan?
Conan's my boy and your boy is?
Yeah, Elric. But don't get me wrong, I love Conan too.
Well, with Conan, I can identify with his,
Stoic.
gigantic mirths and giant melancholies.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's just one of those things. Conan does not get enough credit for the brilliance that he has in the books.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, back to Matt.
All right. Now, basically, again, I love just about anything
loves it.
by Gerald Brom. Gerald Brom's artwork is phenomenal. And again, he's talked about he was inspired by Frazetta. But there's just so many different pieces. I really didn't want to pick one. And so just kind of almost like throwing a dart, I picked Red Hand. Now, Red Hand is cover art for a RPG called Nightbane that came out some years ago. But Red Hand's kind of,
Nightbane.
yeah, Nightbane.
All right, tell me something about that if you know anything.
I don't know
I
a
have no
thing
idea.
about
Okay.
the game Nightbane, but just if people go, hey, what's the significance of this piece of artwork? He was commissioned to do this for the cover of Nightbane, which I want to think this might have even been optioned as maybe like some bonus rules for like riffs or GURPS or something, but don't quote me on that. Or the artwork's been used again, you know. But I mean, just really a neat piece of artwork to me.
And this one might be the only one that's kind of modern times
Well, yeah, I mean,
or futuristic.
futuristic or
It
whatever.
may not
for
be
me.
as far flung as Cyberpunk
Yeah,
because you don't see any evidence of it,
right.
but it could be.
Typical me. This is something maybe kind of post-apocalyptic or aliens or dimensional or whatever.
Well, see, I wouldn't say post-apocalypse because the power's still on.
Yeah, maybe so then. Yeah, who knows? It's kind of like these games where it's like heroes against these secretive dark forces in the modern world.
Yeah,
or
it has a
something.
very gothic feel to it.
Yeah.
Like if you replace those street lights with the gas lamps, it would fit right in.
Yeah, but I mean, there's so much great stuff. There's the work that Brom did for what was the Weird West game from years ago? I can't think. But there, years ago, there was Deadlands. There's a Deadlands cover that's got this kind of an undead zombie guy he's like flinging cards with one hand, holding a great big peacemaker with the other, and like an undead cowboy. Brom did it. Great piece of artwork. Just
Surprise, surprise,
yep.
Conan.
And booty.
And it's your boy, Boris Vallejo,
Vallejo.
which, I mean, it's pretty much him and Franzetta.
Yeah, and they have a very similar style again.
And I want to say this one is probably a DAW book as well. This one
Yeah.
might be an Ace printing that it's actually on the book.
Mm-hmm.
But this is Conan the Freebooter, the cover. And once again, Conan's getting ready to lay the smackdown on a sorcerer.
As a chick who's summoning up a demon, and there's of course some scantily clad, down on her knees. Oh my, save me, Conan! Little hottie toddy. Yeah.
But almost with Conan art, if you're going to use Conan art, there's going to be a scantily clad chick that he's rescuing.
Yeah, or about to put the smackdown on. The sorceress is conveniently / unconveniently covering her new-news, as she's casting the demon, summoning it.
All right, let's see what else we've got from Matt. Aha!
Errol Otis.
His
Right
first
on.
appearance.
Yep, Deities and Demigods, cover art from 1980. If you're looking at it, it seems pulp inspired, and it displays the conflicts between gods and their mortal pawns. But for me, I guess as a kid, what really got me was the colors are so rich and phantasmic. And, Errol was someone who was not afraid to use like pink, purple, and fuchsia in his palette at all.
If I was picking an Errol Otis as my favorite, this would be the one that I would pick too.
Yeah, right on. And so, but I just loved there's the one guy, down on his knees praying and he's communing with his god, which is this Cthulhu-esque insectoid tentacled, multi-armed, thing on one side, and you see these gods up in the heavens. I mean, it's just there's so much going on in this, and it's just really as a young boy, you figure 1980. What was I? Yeah.
Are you sure you want to say?
No, but this just really blew my mind. I really connected with this artwork. Sadly, the content in the book itself, not so much. But this artwork is probably the best thing about it.
Well, it's kind of legends and lore and a bunch of those. If you stat it, players believe they can kill it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Now, we'll say that's one thing we did was we spent one lazy Sunday one time where one person I pick Cthulhu, I pick Zeus, and we roll off and have them fight, using their statistics. So it's just kind of wild.
all right, let's see if I had any more picks left.
Well, sure.
We're getting down there. Oh, all right.
Archetypical adventures, like the dwarf is watching from the back, make sure they're not being snuck up on. The wizard's pointing and explaining something. The halfling's up front, about to touch something he shouldn't. I mean, yeah, this is adventuring, man. But this is in the core book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll have to look this up to hit the book and see what the credits are.
Oh, yeah, to see who the artist is?
Yeah, because I didn't.
Yeah. And I'm trying, just at a glance, I know it's not, who's the director of art? Kovacs.
Kovacs,
It's
yeah,
not
nope.
Kovacs. It's not Pogue, Stephen Pogue. But there were a number of people that did artwork things for the main book. Errol Otis did some artwork for the main book. So there's no telling who this is, sadly, off at a glance. But this is in the core book, actually, this image. And it's a great image. I mean, talking about kind of like the artwork for the Player's Handbook from the
Yep.
first edition, this is like here. This is an example of a typical adventuring party getting to that ooh-ah part of the adventure, kind of, you know? Because like here's this huge leering skull with jewels for eyes. It's like, all right, we want those jewels, but what's going to happen when we mess with this thing? You know?
And like I have said before about DCC, a lot of the art that I really like is like, hey, look at that door that
Yeah.
Kovacs drew.
Yeah.
It's not the things that you would expect.
Who's the guy who did the adventure that we were talking about him earlier? That say what you will about him, the adventure is amazing. That which lies below, or whatever.
Yeah, Bitterman.
Joe Bittman or whatever. But there's a door, the artwork for a door that Kovacs did. That the door, you're like, man, there's so much detail. It looks
one
so cool.
awesome door.
And you're like, wow, I just want to sit there and marvel at this door.
But
he
it's not a
drew.
scantily clad door, so we can get
Yeah.
away without.
Yeah, but so we're not complete, whatever.
All right. For the listeners at home, are you keeping count? Have we got to 10 yet?
I know that you're down to my last piece of artwork, which of course we've already covered. So really, but my last piece I had picked, and we knew we joked about early on there was going to be some
Overlap.
overlap, is Lord Soth's Charge from 1985 by Keith Parkinson. And Parkinson, he had a style. And I mean, like I say, I remember back in around these times, it was like Elmore Easley and Parkinson did so much cool stuff for D&D in the 80s and early 90s, and they each had their own distinct style, and they were all good in their own way. But Parkinson, I can't put I can't. There's not a word for it for me, but it's kind of like, yeah. I mean, there was his color palette and certain things he did. I really love the look of the stuff he did, and it really breaks my heart that he won't be creating any more artwork. I mean, his was really good. And see, he had a relationship with Sony Online, and he did the artwork for the original box covers for the EverQuest games. He did for I think almost all those games. He did the artwork, the box artwork, and then they eventually came out with a game called Vanguard, and he was the art director for Vanguard. He did the artwork for that. And while he was working with them on that project, he developed the leukemia. It's really sad. Anyway.
All right, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and we got another one of these incredible DAW books.
Oh, yeah.
The very first, fantasy thing that I read was Imaro, which I don't know if you know anything about that.
Not a thing.
So Charles R. Saunders was one of the first black authors to write that kind of fantasy novel. So that's his claim to fame. So Imaro is I can't say African American hero. He's a black hero, and it's set more in that kind of African setting.
Interesting.
Where he's in the savannah, but he's very much Conan-esque and Conan-inspired.
Yeah.
And you can tell from this art that could very easily be Conan again. But that's one of the things that it's like, it may not mean a lot to the outside observer, but being as that was one of the very first fantasy images that I was exposed to, really meant a lot to me.
And real quick, just as kind of an interesting aside, or not, is DAW books, is Donald A. Worthington or whatever, the guy who decided to do DAW books, he had been a famous and prolific editor and an author and done all this stuff for years for other publishing houses. But he and his wife decided, and it's kind of a brave thing, like in the 70s, quit those jobs and step away and do their own publishing house. And it was just him and his wife, because to him, all these other publishers had gotten to be too big faceless companies and da-da-da-da-da. And he wanted something that was personality-driven and to be smaller and more intimate. And he decided to do strictly sci-fi and fantasy. And so there's so many of these great DAW books that when I see that gold spine on the book on my bookshelf, I'm like, yeah, it's those Dahl books. So many of those are books that really I loved as a kid. Conan and
The old
Elric and
60s
yeah, and 70s and just
books like that, yeah.
oh man, those are so important to me and what makes me the gamer and game master that I am now.
All right, and then I'm going to cheat and put another one in here as my
Cheetah.
9.5 or
He's a
something. Since
cheetah.
we didn't know, really couldn't tell you too much about the Imaro. Some of these images, you just really can't track back down and find out anything. So I'm also going to put in the cover of the Temple of Elemental Evil. If you look at that with the temple in the background and the gargoyles in the front, that just makes you want to play.
Right on.
Or if you're an evil person, it really makes you want to run.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
That's great artwork, and that's really evocative and really draws you in. Like, oh man, I want to play that.
it makes a fine t-shirt.
Absolutely, it would make a brilliant T-shirt.
All right. Well, I can only imagine how long we've rambled in this one because I haven't been able to watch the clock since we've been looking at our beautiful artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have anything left that we need to tell the fine folks out there?
Yeah, be sure and post on Facebook. Let us know, what's some of your favorite artwork, or if there's any of these pieces we've mentioned that, yeah, man, that meant a lot to me at some point. By all means, share with us. And as usual, we said before, if you've got any topics in mind or things you'd like us to talk about or anything to contribute, post it on Facebook, or of course you can always contact us via our email, which is the No Class Podcast,
RPG.
at gmail.com.
All right. So with that, you can see we've run out of hit points once again. So we will tell you goodbye.
And goodbye.